Hey y'all, we're at the end of the week and we are finishing up nutrient cycles, which is really the last topic before your final, which I'm really excited about. And today we are learning about the last two nutrient cycles, which are water and phosphorus. And so that is what is in our objective for today. So we are going to be able to describe the flow of water and phosphorus through our environment, our biosphere, our earth, because again, there's only a limited number or limited amount of both of these substances on earth. We're going to jump straight into it. We are at the end of April, if y'all can already believe it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how finals will work on Monday next week. I don't want y'all to stress about that right now, but just know that finals are coming the week of May 4th through the 8th, okay? May 4th through the 8th are going to be your finals. But again, today we're going to talk about the water and the phosphorus cycle. I do have a guest star. I know y'all are so excited. She's been spreading the news that she's in this video. But she's going to start talking about my water cycle in just a second. I'm going to clip her video in. But just to give y'all a little bit of background, the majority of the Earth's water is salt water, but only a tiny fraction is actually readily accessible fresh water, which is what humans need. It's also what most animals need. Water found at the Earth's surface actually cycles rapidly, and that's one thing to notice, is that these other cycles might take a long time. Water cycles very, very quickly. If y'all were in Dallas, if you're still located in Dallas, maybe you experienced that giant thunderstorm and rainstorm that we had last night. But much of Earth's water lies in ice and the polar caps in the ocean, and also in underground reservoirs. And this water cycles slowly, but that will actually cycle through plants. The water cycle is complex and involves state changes. And state changes, if we do not remember, water can be as a liquid, a solid, and a gas. And it's going to change between these, and it can go pretty much any direction that it wants to, in all directions. But we are going to talk about this specifically as Bree walks you through this beautiful cycle, and I will clip her video in. So we do have a special guest, Brianna Woodard, and she will explain, and I will help her walk you through the water cycle. Okay. Hey y'all, thanks for joining us in this video today. Brianna Woodard volunteered to be a...
No, Miss Lynn, it's Babyface Breezy.
Okay, so Babyface Breezy is joining us today because she asked to be in one of my videos, and I have her here to help explain the water cycle, which is something hopefully y'all learned in middle school, but we're going to revisit it. Bree and I have been talking through the water cycle, so I'm going to kind of ask her some questions, and she's going to try to explain as much as she can to us along the way. Okay, so Bree, to start off with, why is it called a cycle?
Because it have like, because it goes different ways, different times. Like it have a what is it called? It's a word I'm trying to say, but don't know how to say it.
Well, think about the amount of water on Earth. Does the amount of water on Earth ever change?
Yes.
So we have different amounts of water tomorrow than we did today?
Yeah.
Girl, no.
How? Yes, we do.
We have the same amount of water.
No.
We've had the same amount of water forever. Okay?
No.
And it's called a cycle because we have to recycle. We have to reuse it.
But what if all the water don't recycle? What if you leave like 1% out? That's not all the water that we
Well, so that's a problem. So if you have a plastic water bottle and there's water in there and you decide to screw that lid on really tight and you throw it in the trash, that water might be lost to the world unless that bottle breaks open and it's released again, right?
See, that's why we don't have all the water come back. See what I'm saying? See?
But we can't create water, okay? So we've got to be able to recycle our water somehow. Okay, so that is the water cycle. Now, Bree, do you know what kind of energy fuels this water cycle?
Yeah.
Energy from what?
From the sun.
From the sun. Okay, so let's start by talking about the water cycle over here. So here we've got a large body of water, like an ocean, a river, or a lake, right? Mm-hmm. What's the first step of the water cycle when that sun's energy starts heating up the water on the surface of that lake or the ocean?
Okay, first it starts in the ocean, of course, and then it starts to evaporate up. Yeah.
So first off, evaporation. What is happening?
The water is floating up to the sky.
Okay, so we have water. In what state is that water in the ocean?
What state?
Yeah, is it a liquid, a solid, or a gas?
It's a liquid.
It's a liquid. Okay, and as it evaporates, what's it turning into?
It's turning to gas.
Perfect. Okay, and so that's when our next vocab term. What's our next vocab term?
Solid.
No, not solid.
Oh, are you talking about?
What is it called?
I knew that. Okay. It's condensation.
Condensation. Perfect.
Condensation.
So when we have condensation happening, that's when we get clouds. Think condensation clouds. Okay. Now, do those clouds just hold the water up in the atmosphere?
No, it's like when we go to the restroom, you have to release.
Okay, so how are they going to release it?
Okay, when it comes from condensation, it's going to go to transportation, and it's going to go inside the cloud, and then next thing you know, that's when you have to release the water and everything, so it'll go to precipitation, whatever you say that word,
Precipitation.
And then you let it out, let it free.
Cool. Okay, so once the water has precipitated back down to Earth, okay, there's two things that can happen to it. Okay. Remember one of them. One of them you were talking about when you get new tennis shoes, and
oh yes, oh my God, this make everybody mad. When you get new tennis shoes and then it rain and then the mud go, that's called the groundwater flow. Well, no, that's not the groundwater flow. It's plank uptake. No,
not plank uptake. So what's happening is that water can either be evaporated back into the atmosphere, or it can do this thing called a percolation.
I knew that, Miss Lynn. I knew that. I was just playing around with you.
And percolation is when what? What's happening to the water?
The water is getting like into the ground. It's making the ground muddy.
Into the ground, yeah. Now, sometimes the ground gets too much water at once, and that's what causes the mud. It can't absorb all that water at once, and that's when you get mud, and when your shoes and your sneakers get all ruined.
Yes.
Now, again, this cycle is completion. Eventually, if that water is absorbed into the ground, over here, the plants will eventually uptake it. So just like how plants need water, they'll take the water from the ground, and they will give that water back into the atmosphere through a process called transpiration. And that's when we release water as a gas back into the atmosphere. We talked about that when we learned about plants. So it's full cycle, no matter if the water ends up in the ground or if it gets evaporated back into the atmosphere. It's eventually going to cycle around the earth. Now, this cycle happens quick, unlike the next cycle that we're going to talk about, which is the phosphorus cycle. And Bree's going to leave us, and I'm going to explain the phosphorus cycle. But thanks, Bree, for being our special guest today.
I can always be the special guest because I make the videos the bomb. So you kids better watch this video and listen to every word.
Okay, we'll sign off, and Bree is going to maybe join us again next week. Okay, thanks so much for Bree for being our special guest, but we're going to move right on to the next cycle. The next cycle is a weird one. It's the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is the element that it is on the periodic table, and this is what it looks like in nature. But if you're like, why does phosphorus matter? Who needs phosphorus? Well, if you like having DNA and cell membranes and bones in your body, you probably also want to make sure that there's enough phosphorus to go around for everybody. Phosphorus is an essential nutrient found in humans and other organisms, and it is one of those elements that actually make up our DNA. This cycle is extremely slow. And it's slow because most phosphorus in nature exists in a phosphate ion. And what that means is the element has an oxygen attached to it. And if we were going to write out what a phosphate ion looks like, it's that. Y'all haven't taken chemistry yet. This is something that we cannot use. So it's often what we call a limiting nutrient, or it's a nutrient that is so scarce and limits the growth. And often it limits specific growth of ecosystems in water, so aquatic. Phosphorus can be found in sedimentary rocks, and as the rocks weather and wear down, just breaking down over long time periods, the phosphorus they contain slowly leaches, is absorbed into surface water and soils. Once phosphate's in the soil, or those phosphate compounds are in the soil, it can actually be taken up by plants. And we're going to talk about how it can be cycled through in the next slide. I'm also going to talk about this last bullet point, and I'm going to go back to this. But let's say that, again, a lot of phosphorus can be found in rocks and sediment, and over time it gets dissolved, like I was talking about, into soil. Well, eventually that soil can run off and go to different lakes or streams or water, but eventually it's going to end up in plants. So I'm going to draw a little tree here. That's my beautiful tree. I know it looks great. And so this runoff can lead to plants absorbing the water. It can be taken up by plants. But also you see that it runs off even into marine food webs. And it can also be transferred by runoff to lakes, rivers, oceans, where it will be taken up by aquatic organisms. So it's also really, really important for aquatic organisms. Eventually, if it doesn't get uptaken by aquatic organisms, or once those organisms die, those organisms' bodies will go down to the ocean floor, turn into rock, and as y'all know, the tectonic plates of our Earth move. So what was once the ocean floor is eventually going to move to land. Again, that's where this process takes a long time. We're talking 20,000 to 100,000 years for animals to die, turn into rock, and then move into a usable source. A quick note, because it's in this picture, volcanic ash is also a source of phosphorus in our planet and in our environment. Now, something that you might know that contains phosphorus is fertilizer, and fertilizer is used in agriculture to help plants grow. It can be used even in your own lawn or garden, and phosphorus is going to be in that fertilizer. So we actually have this problem where fertilizers are causing runoff, which means that phosphorus in that fertilizer eventually is going to be washed away by the rain, and it is going to go to aquatic. Remember, aquatic means water, those water ecosystems. When there's a buildup or an excessive amount of phosphorus in aquatic ecosystems, there's a lot of growth of algae and other microbes that were previously limited by nitrogen and phosphorus. This is a really unique, I'm going to go back to my last slide, effect. It's called eutrophication. And this is when we overgrow algae, and it actually ends up depleting oxygen from the water and creating a dead zone, okay? And this is sort of one of those disruptions that we might cause from our own intervention in nature. We're going to create these dead zones, and you can kind of see where they're located, off the United States, off of Europe, off of Asia, up there in Russia. But we're going to have these dead zones where that lower levels of oxygen can actually lead to hypoxia, which just means lack of oxygen, for other aquatic organisms such as shellfish and finfish, things that don't move around a lot but still need oxygen to survive. Those things are going to essentially die in these areas. This can be reduced or prevented. Fertilizers, phosphorus-containing detergents, improper disposal of sewage can all be sources of phosphorus that drive eutrophication by runoff. So using less fertilizer, eliminating phosphorus-containing detergents, ensuring that sewage does not enter waterways from leaky septic systems are all ways that individuals, companies, and governments can help reduce eutrophication. And that is all I had today. You do have a quiz over nutrient cycles. It's 10 questions. 6 questions will be on part 1, and 4 questions will be on part 2. You also have an exit ticket. I forgot to give you all the password. The password is the name of the person who guest starred on our show today. Just kidding, this is a lesson. It's going to be Brianna because she took time out of her day to join me on Zoom and teach all about the water cycle. So shoot her a text or give her a thanks by watching this lesson and doing the exit ticket. But the password is Brianna, lowercase b, everything lowercase. Okay, hope y'all have a great day, and I hope you do well on this quiz. If you need help on nutrient cycles, please come to Zoom office hours. Bye!